Hello, my name is Gary Mansfield, and this is the Ministry of Arts podcast, where each week I'll be speaking to a different artist. Now let's begin by bagging these bongos.
Yeah, right. Crazy.
Hello, and welcome to episode 206 of the Ministry of Arts podcast. Firstly, a big shout out to our Patreon supporters, without whom we would not be able to produce this podcast. And if you like what you hear and think you could support us in some way, then go over to the Ministry of Arts Instagram profile. You'll find a Linktree drop-down box which will direct you to our Patreon page. And for as little as £3 a month, which is pretty much the price of a cup of coffee, you could help us grow. And 100% of that goes back into this podcast. For the last couple of years throughout the summer, we've interviewed the artists who are taking part in the Kensington and Chelsea Art Week. Well, they've got an open call for artists to take part in their public art trail. And the deadline for that open call is the 30th of January. So if you want to find out more information, go over to their Instagram profile, which is KCAW London, or over on their website, which is kcaw.co.uk. And remember, that closes on the 30th of January. But back to this week's episode. Today, I'm taking you to meet Tanya Ling. This is another one of those recordings that's been in the pipeline for oh so long. We did do a bonus episode with Tanya some time ago when she was an artist in residence at a school which was in Southwark, if I remember rightly. Well, several weeks ago I met up with Tanya to record this episode, and she did have some builders finishing something off, and they do make themselves known a couple of times during this episode. Tanya's had an amazing career, and it's astonishing to know that her journey as a full-time artist has only been over the last 5 years. While Tanya creates the artwork, her husband, William, well, I suppose he more takes care of the business side, the bit that gets in the way of any creative, you know. Perfect situation. And I've got to say, before this episode, I did have quite a long chat with Will, and for some time, poor old Tanya was sat there twiddling her thumbs while Will and I had a little trip down memory lane. But anyway, that's for another day. Let's talk about the here and now. Please, come and join me as I spoke to the inspirational Tanya Ling.
Oh, you'll probably like that. That's Michael Landy.
I saw that when I
Yeah, I was
come
going
in.
to say that's. And then that's Georgie, you know, Gary's wife. I think we've got some Gary somewhere upstairs, maybe.
I had Gary sent one in to me when I was in jail.
Oh, he's so kind.
He
I mean,
had.
he's so.
It was a bit
He's
of
got such a big heart, Gary. Yeah.
bit of A4 drawing paper, and he'd said something in one of the letters about it was. Do you remember you used to do those lemon or potato drawings? You put it on there, and then when you put it under, you can't see anything. You put it under the grill, and then it comes to light.
Yes.
And he said he'd done an artwork made out of lemon juice or lime juice or something like that. So I'd got it, and then I'd put it under the grill while I was in there. Yeah. And then this image of, I think it was like lemons come through.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've got a Gary Hume. Yeah. I had a Gary Hume hanging in my prison cell, you know.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it good story.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Well, Tanya, I have 7 questions that I ask each artist. I've got is, how would you explain what you do to someone that didn't know your work?
I would say that I would almost be, if you can think of like cooking, and some people maybe in the West would follow recipe books.
Yeah.
And know where their destination is, and it would all be quite prescriptive. They'd have to get the right ingredients, and then like method, ingredients, method, and you know all the timing of it all. I would say don't do that. I would be more like, I guess, I think what happens in the East, where it's more. You get the dough and you chuck some water and salt at it, and then it's more, and you just fiddle about with it. It's more sensual, and you just know that feels right to stick in the oven at that point.
So the artwork that you create is very loose, very linear. Have you any idea what you're going to create before you start creating?
No.
Perfect.
I don't. But I know that obviously there's either a canvas in front of me or something three-dimensional that I want to happen, or a piece of paper. So, and I know that I'm in the constraints of a day and a time, and at the end of the day, something's going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what does turn up on the canvas? Is it emotionally led? Is it how you're feeling at the time, the colours you use?
Yeah, it's partly emotional and partly a reaction to the diary of the day, of what's happening, and then I can, some things are emotion, other things are quite, because of like movement, colour, a conversation I've had. Sometimes I'm not working alone. For a few months I was working in California outside, so there was all literally that to deal with.
Yeah.
And then I was working with lots of horses and horse people, so they would sometimes just come and hang out with me. So it was all in reaction to that halts and everything, but also sometimes I'd be starting and stopping and thinking that I'm going to do that over there, but suddenly I get hungry and then have to go away and then come back again, and then that doesn't exist, what I thought was going to exist.
So do you take a colour palette with you? Do you know at least what colour range you're going to be using that day?
No, because I'll have everything there always.
Brilliant. So if you're doing a series of 7, number 1 could be very different from number 2.
Yeah, but sometimes I could be working on like 7 images at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, visually, for someone that may not have seen your work, who's listening at the moment, how would you describe what it is they could be looking at?
In some ways, I at that point tell them I think it's their business. It's like a handover. It's almost like I'm the opposite of a collector or I don't want to control things. I don't want to be controlling what happens next, because I like to be surprised. I like to do these things and wonder who these speak to.
Yeah.
And who's going to respond to them or not. So it's very much a handover. When I'm working, I'll keep working. But I mean, I know that I'm believing in what I'm doing. I almost see it as a condition.
Yeah.
And I feel very grateful that I'm enabled to do this.
Brilliant.
And so when I'm working, there'll be this satisfaction knowing that it's almost like it's already there. It's almost like I'm somebody who just goes to unveil or unravel something that's already there. Like Columbus went to America, but it was already there anyway. But he got to sail in the boat and have some fun and take his team and his dogs with him and stuff and get to America.
Sometimes the work, when you look at it, sometimes it's linear, or it's very linear, but it's very loose. Sometimes it looks like leaves. It could be a plant. It could be. It looked like I described it, and I did write this down. One of the few things I've written down, that some bits of your work looks like you're in front of a forest of kelp that's just floating and moving around in the ocean.
Yeah, because I think something definitely happens with perspective and dimension, and they almost look. I see what you mean. Like when you go, it's almost like you can go right into them.
Climb your way through them, yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because when I work, I don't feel that's like size or matters as it's like, because I'm right, I can be right up in it.
Yeah.
I don't have to keep standing away.
Yeah, there's a definite.
So it's almost like I'm tunneling away or like a little squirrel just squirreling away at something, and then.
If you was telling me that your work was a continuous line, I could see that as well.
So it's so you're saying that in a way my work is one work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an onward. It keeps going. So it's like if the bio tapestry just went on and on and on. There is a they do seem to be there is a uniqueness by each one in that, I guess, space and time, and in a way each one is like I would say like when a writer just does a diary.
Yeah.
There is a bit of that going on
Definitely.
as well. So it's you can only always be you.
Yeah.
But there is definitely different scenes going on.
How did your art journey start? Was there creativity in the home growing up?
Well, I'm an only child. I was born in India, Calcutta. My parents came over here when I was 3 months old.
Oh, wow, okay.
And all kids draw. And because I was an only child, I guess, and my parents are very excited about being immigrants here, coming over here. They really they love cricket and, P.G. Woodhouse and anything. What they romanticise England to be in, a certain place. And then when they
trapped in the 30s.
And this was like in the this was in the mid to late 60s.
Yeah.
So every weekend we would always be going everywhere. Even and my father was a university lecturer, so we had loads of holidays and time, and they were just completely excited. So that we'd be going everywhere imaginable. I'd probably be more places in the British Isles than you have. Because everything
they just
was
wanted
like,
lap it all.
Oh
like
sponge, just thought everything about England was absolutely amazing. So therefore I was travelling a lot. So therefore one handy thing was this piece of paper. Everything else was changing except for this, but I could control these little sketch pads, so I could put my world into these works. And then because that was my stability. That was my home, really, because we did move around a lot as well. So even now I like moving and chopping and changing and going to loads of studios and just working here and working there, even different climates, countries, indoor, outdoor. And I'm thinking, actually, I've just realised that when I do all of that, I'm actually just at home. And then my grandparents and my parents took me to Paris. They said, you've got to come and see the most important painting in the world, or the best painting in the world. So it was quite sweet, really. So we all went this little, my mother and my grandmother all wearing their saris, and with our packed chapati lunches, and then we thought we're going to keep doing that and then have all French food. And then we went to the Louvre as soon as we got there, and we queued up to see the Mona Lisa, and my father put me on his shoulders and he said, "Is that the best painting in the world?" And I just looked at it and I thought, yes. I was just completely taken in.
Isn't it great that they can be like that?
Yes, it was so beautiful. It was so innocent, and everything was so enthusiastic. So anyway, that was it really. But then as I got older and I decided I wanted to go to art school and was doing art, I think probably people like Merritt Oppenheim, the fur cup and saucer, I think probably blew my mind.
It's been mentioned on here a few times,
Has it?
Artwork, yeah.
Really, it really was.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a slideshow, and then I thought, that was like a eureka moment. That art is really, really personal to. It's your unique voice.
Yeah. Is that the first artwork that really rung clear for you?
Yes, it was literally. Yes, it was completely. As a young adult, I was only 15, 16, maybe a bit younger at the time, but it's like what I was just saying a few minutes ago about you do what you do and you wonder who it's going to speak to, and you were spoken to, but it's all like someone sent an electric shock up you.
Definitely. And speaking of that, we should mention, if anyone can hear the noise in the background, there's a bit of building work going on at the moment. Not that that's going to bother anyone's listening, by the way, I should add. But yeah, when a work connects with you like that, it just puts you on a whole new path, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's I mean, there's a number of reasons why it happens, and some of it, but so much is like timing. Maybe you are ready for something, or it's like you have that you have that piece in you.
Yeah.
If that
Well, I was willing to open myself up to that artwork. I was willing to understand it.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have been willing before. I wouldn't have given it the time. I wouldn't have gone back and read it.
And then you couldn't then you were just slapping it all up, literally.
Yeah, but because I'd fallen for the art world and wanted to be a part of it, I knew that this conceptual art that I had no respect for, I knew that that was a part of the art world and knew that I should at least have some understanding, even if I didn't want to have any respect for it.
But then did that make you dismissive of things that you traditionally thought were arts works?
Not really. What is behind the artwork, the reason it's there. Yeah. But that's all for me now, because I've seen how much art changed me, and it's the same with people. Yeah. Is in my eyes that you might see someone that you think, oh, I don't like them, or I don't like what they say.
You're completely everything.
Because we're just having a little snapshot and know nothing about that person, that artwork, that whatever. And then when you give something just a little bit of time and understanding, it can change your view.
So it's quite funny, isn't it? Because it's like you're not judging the book by the cover, and yet it's art.
Yeah.
Which is, obviously a lot of it's visual.
And when you saw that cup, did that make you want to go in that direction of creating work, or staying on the traditional contemporary route?
I just thought it was a huge amount of energy, and it was opened up this whole other universe, and then in that universe there was this personal energy where I knew that it could go in all these different directions, and there was this freedom to relax in there.
Yeah, for me it sounds like it was similar to you. It showed me that the art world was wide, not as narrow as I thought it was.
Yeah, and also that opened up going to see lots of galleries, like the Hayward Gallery, and any contemporary work that was on show anywhere. Literally, I had this appetite to go and learn and see and just take in, I guess. So I think the first time I went to the Hayward Gallery, there was, everything was accepted. I wasn't questioning or negative about anything. It was almost like this respect that somebody else had got their act together to bother to do this. What were they saying? And it was there was no kind of question about, but is this art? It was almost like the opposite, really.
Yeah.
It was. Maybe that's because I was walking into an institution, and all the graphics and the catalogues and all the paraphernalia around it.
Do you think
that was all telling me that that's art?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's already been okayed for you to say it is an artwork. It's been verified.
Yes, but there's something about when you do go to a museum and see art that it's different to when you go to a shop to buy clothing or some shoes or something, because everything's already there. It's already been designed, and it's there's a completeness about that's the function of it. But with art, yes, it's art, and it's there it's in that museum, it's in that gallery, in that space. But there is something more to it that you can use and make something of, and become somebody else with, or become more of yourself with the help of that.
We've got a very modern example of that in this room, in Gavin Turk's sign there.
Yeah.
In his blue plaque. That was a point of conversation at the start of his career, and he got kicked out of the art school for showing it, and it's one of the most loved artworks for me, at least. It just sums up everything about Gavin, yet the people at the art school where he showed it had no respect for that artwork, did they, at the time?
Yes, and I guess that made it even more so.
Yeah.
The establishment ignoring it or disliking it, and actually and the piece itself is a heritage plaque, which is.
And I'm sure that each and every one of them have kicked themselves since. Beautiful.
But it's a great story.
Beautiful. Yeah, perfect. What a way to start your career.
Yeah, it was so handsome.
And when did you realise that you wanted to be an artist? Can you remember?
Well, actually, being this little kid and always like drawing, like I said, like a condition and moving about, it was almost like this comfort. It was this friend. It was this my own little principality that never really stopped. But then what happened is that I started to draw people a lot, and the people had to be clothed. And then when I don't think I was that great at doing many other things, but really art was the obvious one. And I just think my parents just thought that they didn't really understand that you could have an art career, because they thought they were very academic, and they thought I should go to university and do an academic subject, but I wasn't very academic, and I thought I said I'd love to go to art school, but they always loved my art and really were excited by it, but we didn't really understand how to do things practically. So my father, in fact, he worked out that if you want to go to art school, you should go to St Martin's, because we kind of there was a point when I was very young, I did like style and drawing clothes, and so therefore that's how fashion came about. So I was only about 12 or 13, and then my dad said, I found out this art school. So it was all like
brilliant.
It's not like I was this lone ranger who was striking out against the world at all. It seemed to be that, our little darling is great at art, and now maybe she should do design. So she does do all these clothes and likes style a lot. So yeah.
So did you feel that you was giving away a little bit by going into fashion because you wanted to be an artist, or did you decide that was the career that you'd fancied doing anyway? Once
because
your father had said that. Yeah,
I did think that that design and drawing clothes was really satisfying me creatively. And then when I got into the art school, it was a lot of being at St Martin's was about just being yourself and being allowed to work yourself out. I think that's what happens in loads of art schools, but the fact that it was really important to express your ideas and designs and drawings in sketchbooks, and we did a lot of life drawing, so I loved all that. So I was always filling up sketchbooks and always pouring all the ideas into them, but practically I was just not great at all. And then that's where I met William, and I got married when I was still at art school, and in my final year I had Bipasha, our eldest daughter. But it wasn't until quite a lot later on when I unexpectedly started to work as a commercial artist, a fashion illustrator, and I did that for about 20 years, and I kind of did everything that one could do with that, and it was great because it was a great way to make a living while I was bringing 3 children up. Like you've seen literally in the back of the garden.
Was it in this house you brought them up?
Yes,
Brilliant.
yes.
Brilliant.
So therefore that studio place that you see at the back, that literally had to be built for me in about 202. Otherwise everything was, you know, everywhere. But I think I kind of thought, I was always thankful for doing it, for having all that work, but there was a point when I thought there's so much more going on, and I've just done everything I can imagine do here, and it's not. There's something in like a hole that needed to be filled really, and then it wasn't till about 2012, 13 I thought I have to literally break for the border, almost like decide to retire from that to start doing something that has got nothing to do with fashion directors, creative directors, art directors, nothing to do with a team, but just being by myself and trying to work this out.
And was that just 10 years ago?
Yes, yeah.
I didn't realise it was that.
Yes, soon, yeah, it wasn't long, yes. So
you was quite a significant cog in a very big machine. How did you feel as a person walking away from that and you being the cog and the machine?
Yeah, well, that's really interesting because actually, Gary, it took me from really being convicted that I wanted to make work just for the existence of the work itself without any other reason, to actually being able to do that full time. That took from about 2012 to 2017, end of 2017.
Shit.
Because then as work came in that was commercial work, I did take it on because, you know, because it pays the bills, you know, I did. And I did love some of those projects still. I mean, I wasn't like disrespectful, but you know, I had to, I guess a bit like a mercenary. Yes, I took them on. I took it on. But it wasn't until the end of 2017 that I think, oh no, I fully have retired from this.
I am an artist.
Yes, yeah. And I thought, no, I can, you know, take.
And then, I mean, so you only had, if that was up to 2017, it was only sort of like 2.5 years past that when COVID hit.
Yeah.
And then, what was you doing during COVID?
Yeah, I mean, the whole COVID thing, I just thought was really quite amazing. I loved it all.
Was it just a time that you had to create?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was
freedom.
Yeah, it was just this. There's a number of things. That first initial when everything stopped, I mean, yeah, I just found that really intriguing. Like, is this really happening? And then I just took up. I was just in the back room there, and with my youngest daughter Evangeline, and I just decided to order some very small linen panels, and proceeded to make all these oil paintings because she started to do oil paintings because she assists this a great artist called Alistair McKinven, who's also an art tutor at the Slade, and he's now in Vienna, and she was fortunate enough to assist him. So she was learning all about oil painting, and she was giving me lectures about it. And so we decided, so it was very recent. It was only like, I mean, I think whenever it was in that lockdown period, I did do some oil paintings before then, but so we were in that little room behind you with these little things, paint, like little panels, and that's when I started to like really make these very intricate, intense works, and then we were listening to Odysseus. We even listened to the 200-page introduction. I mean, but then I went from that to then, because of COVID, getting this huge space in Covent Garden, which was like a little mini department store.
I saw that.
So but before then, in like 2018 and 2017, I did also get these like phenomenal spaces really, where I was able to make giant horses and huge installations, and then make more line paintings and kind of and sculptures, and just keep working away and to keep finding things.
That one in Covent Garden you was on, that was a strange space to be showing in, wasn't it? Because it was, am I right saying that the work was just hanging? It wasn't on a wall, was it?
No, it was on the wall, but I know what you mean. It's a bit like going into like a Venetian palazzo. Yeah. There's like it's like a big space that's got loads of like it's got three levels. So the levels are like corridors. Yeah. So, but then actually on the corridor walls on each floor, my work. That's where I was working. I think most people probably would have found that place quite eerie, because it was like really like nobody was around in the West End, and it was this quite a big place and space to be all by yourself.
Yeah.
And there was one occasion when someone did try and break in, but there was a when it was a department store, there was a notice to saying, look, if a terrorist or someone comes in, you've got to try and run out the building. If you can't run out the building, hide and make sure your phone is switched off and it's not even vibrating. Yeah. So I thought, that's really helpful for me.
That doesn't really put your mind at ease, does it?
No, but when someone did try and break in, I was literally coming down the stairs, so there was nowhere for me to go. But then they didn't get in, so it was fine.
Brilliant. How much work do you produce now?
Well, at the moment, I'm not doing anything because I've just literally come in for landing, preparing for takeoff again.
It's just that I was talking to a gallerist a few months ago, probably about a year ago now, and he runs a small high street gallery. The other part of his job is selling artworks, and he mentioned you. I was saying, like, what artworks sell well in the shop, what ones sell well in the market, as it were. And he mentioned you. He went, as soon as you get a Tanya Ling, they've gone straight away. And he said, I could sell them all day long. And I thought that was quite a nice thing for an art.
Well, it's going
to be an art dealer as such.
Well, it's going back to what I keep going on about you make. I believe that I'm doing I'm being like completely sincere that I've got to do this, and I'm kind of putting my heart on my sleeve with these works, and then there's a point when I'm ready, if you like, to share them, to show them, but and you just don't know who they are.
But I like the idea that you're not going to just make yourself a machine, like we're sitting in front of Damien Hirst's spots. Yeah. Well, we've seen just in the last few days. You was there yourself, wasn't you? When he was burning the works. Damien will just sell he can flood the market and flood it,
Yeah,
and it feels like, going by what that guy said, you could easily do that, but you don't want to, because you're just trusting the process rather than going for the commercial side. Would that be right, or would that be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I'm just only little me.
That's what I'd love to tell you, it's nothing to do with me, but I'd love to say don't change that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm I can. I have my limitations, and I can. Yeah, I just will keep making this work, but then there's.
Do you make prints of your work?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. We have got. I have got print. Do you know Mark Jenkins?
No.
Chip. What's he called? His company K2 Screen. I think they're called.
Sorry.
He's a lovely guy. In fact, you should meet him. Really, he's been doing like prints, exceptional prints with artists for decades now, and I have produced a few prints with him. He's just very, very, very. They're a lovely team of people to work with, and it's when I do work really closely with William. So we do sort of plan things together.
Yeah.
Like we obviously plan to make a print, and then I think so.
I mean, the favourite one I've seen of yours is the one I saw today that's on your wall in front of me, just painted on your wall. Beautiful. The way it's wrapping around the room.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you. It's almost like a bit like it's gone a bit like a mark on a banknote now, hasn't it?
Yeah, very much. I described it as a ghost when I saw it.
Yeah, yes.
And it's beautiful.
It's so funny how that, because I just take it so for granted and matter of fact, but as it has faded, in a way, it's kind of getting. It's become something else.
Definitely.
Maybe that I haven't that you've walked into that I didn't see before.
Well, when something's in your eye line every day, all day, you
Yeah.
don't see or appreciate it anymore, do you? Until it gets highlighted. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the other thing. It's like I have got this studio space in southwest France near Toulouse, and we're having some work done to this standalone barn. So I'd love to be making work in there at some point, like next year. But I do love the thought of like being like this nomad.
Yeah.
Like I recently went to Vienna, and I thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to work there for a while? And it's quite a change from California, from being outside, and I love the whole Californian. And
can you feel
thing.
Visually? Does your work change?
Yes,
from place to place?
yeah.
Beautiful.
That's it.
Brilliant.
That's as simplistic as yes.
And it's you just absorbing your surroundings.
Yeah, because I can only ever always be me.
Yeah.
And in a way, I'm a bit always like that immigrant that my parents were, coming here and seeing everything that's going off and kicking off and thinking, this is phenomenal.
It's like you're forever walking around sitting on your dad's shoulders.
Yeah, yes.
That's the best in the world.
Yeah, it's very simplistic, and I'll be like, the fact that I'm like travelling around but I'm still able to make this work, and then knowing that because I'm in this unique space now, what on earth is going to happen? Yeah,
it's as if the little drawing pad that you travelled around with as a child, it's just now so happens to be canvas. Rather than a little notepad. But
but it could be anything. I mean, I do like taking photos, and I'm always like, I'm a bit like, it's like when William and some other like artist friends go to exhibitions and galleries, they'll take things in really respectfully and slowly. They've got their style of doing it. I'm sure you have, but I am more like this like whale that has its mouth open. I'll just literally be like this whale that goes in with my mouth open.
Yeah.
And it's not like I haven't taken anything in, that I haven't taken anything in.
Yeah.
It's like I will take it all in.
Just like your parents when they come to England, they're just absorbing everything that they see there.
Yeah, because they never ever saw themselves as like victims or like oppressed in any way. They were like choosing to come here as a fun thing to do. Yeah. So I guess, I
mean, wouldn't it be great if everyone in every country had that attitude? Just loving everything that's around them.
Yeah, well, you just sort of accepting, like, even when someone behaves a bit peculiarly or like rude or like has got a completely different like view to you, it's like everything is like, oh wow, that's really interesting. You know?
When I come out of prison, when I was deprived from freedom and I got my freedom, the raindrops, I love the rain, the sunshine,
so
the cold dark days, looking up at the sky, you just appreciate everything, I remember looking up at the stars for the first, being able to look above me like that, which before I was only able to look out of a window.
Wow.
Across between the fence and the top of the wall, but being able to look up at the stars and seeing, you know, when the raindrops are falling down, you
Yeah.
can see them getting bigger and bigger,
Yeah.
can't you, as they're coming towards you. Just not appreciating
And
any
like
of
racing
that.
each other.
Yeah, and just hitting you in the face. 'Cause
Wow.
I hadn't
yes.
been out in the rain for 6 or 7 years.
So even the air, even
Everything,
breathing in
yeah.
cold air and like seeing
I mean,
your breath.
We was allowed to go out on exercise,
Yeah.
so you'd walk around in that circle,
Yeah.
even if it was around a big field or what have you. But we was never allowed out in the fog. We was never allowed out in the rain. And when I went out afterwards and it was cloudy or raining, like some demented idiot, I'd be sounding. Have you seen Shawshank Redemption, the film, when he gets out at the end and he's holding his arms open in the pissing down the rain? That was me just wanting to get wet.
Yeah.
And, you know, everyone else was like running into shop doorways and I'm standing there sort of like rejoicing like some sort of lunatic in the rain.
Oh, that's
you know.
beautiful.
But yeah, just absorbing your
Yeah, because
surroundings.
it's like so. It's just so brilliant to hear your story, Gary. I mean, it's.
We've heard a lot of
Yeah.
it today. What piece that you've created, Tanya, do you think has got the strongest emotional connection?
I would say my sculptures,
Nice.
which haven't really, kicked off yet.
Describe them. I've not seen the
Yeah,
sculptures.
because they are all about the moment and the guts of the moment. They're all about everything, every movement that I place is like every mark that I make on paper or canvas. That there's this absoluteness about it. There's confidence. There's this assurance that this is where I am in this moment, making this and being part of it. And I guess that's exactly the same when I make sculptures. But when there's sculptures, it's you are kind of dealing with like gravity more.
What material do you use?
Oh, just anything, absolutely anything. Yeah, anything.
Be
So it's almost
like wood, clay.
yeah, all of it. But it's just almost like a smash and grab. That's what they and there is they literally are. I mean, they are, and there is this kind of like they're like there's a huge like humour, but also there's sorrow. So I think a lot of my works would be like flying and drowning at the because in a day that can happen to you, couldn't it? You're flying and drowning and.
Yeah, so when
And
you
then
said
sometimes
flag
you're
flying,
stable, yeah.
I was just imagining the flag just wilting on a non-windy day.
Yeah, and then suddenly it could just have lift off. So then I could do all that in a painting, and the same happens in a sculpture. But I guess because it's literally 3-dimensional.
And what size are they?
Well, the biggest ones so far must be about your size,
Wow,
and the smallest one's probably about the size of this glass.
nice.
So that's still.
Where was that? Was that in France?
Yeah, I've made sculptures down there. In fact, the first lot of sculptures I made were in 2014. I didn't make many of them, and I showed them alongside my line paintings in, Alex Eagle, before she had her first shop. She let me use her space.
Oh wow,
as a studio.
nice.
And that's where I made my first sculptures, actually, in that space.
Oh wow.
Actually, no, I did a bit in Richmond as well, but they were more like installations, I guess. But these were like full-bodied little pieces.
What was in Richmond? Was that a studio space?
Yes, yeah.
That was where I finished off my sentence in Richmond. Did you know there was a prison there?
No, I had no idea.
Do you know at Ham Common?
Yes.
So it's at the bottom of Petersham Hill.
Yeah.
You've got the common there on the right, and then there's Church Lane, which heads down in towards one of the gates into the park.
Oh, right.
Down Church Lane, there was a prison.
I had no idea. So
Yeah.
that's where you were living for a while?
That's where I finished off my sentence. That's where I was allowed to go out.
Yeah.
That's where I started university from there.
So that's when you were at art school? You did your...
I started university there, and I'd done college at the prison before in Aylesbury.
So what year was that?
2001. Middle of September I started university, and I think it was the 2nd or 3rd of October I was released.
So then you had this period of when I presume that you did your VQ when you were in prison, and then you went to uni when you left.
Yeah,
So
I
went
done
on
2
to higher education.
GMVQs in prison.
Yeah.
Finished off in Aylesbury, which was an open prison. Finished off my GMVQ there.
Yeah.
Then I went to the prison which was called Latchmere House in Richmond. I went there. We had to do a few weeks of sort of work in the prison and a bit of community work. Started going to work on building sites, and then, as I say, at the end of middle of September, they allowed me to stop work and go to university from there. So, I don't want to make myself sound like some sort of victim here, but it was really difficult for me to come out of this really macho, testosterone-filled environment, then going to a uni that is really liberal, friendly. It was a bit of a head fuck, Tanya, to tell you the truth. And then, worst of all, just so I'm getting used to it. Yeah, just so I'm getting used to it at uni, I've got to go back to bloody prison again and put on that macho face again.
Yeah, you have to put your shield up, I guess.
It was a real.
Gosh,
luckily, it was only a couple of 3 weeks, but that was a real challenge, to be honest.
So you were then being rehabilitated to help you to get back into normal civilian life.
That's what the open prisons are for.
Okay.
And I was in 2 of them.
So it's right at those end stages.
Yeah. But yeah, that was a bit of hard work. The hardest thing being around bloody women again, because that was difficult. Because
you weren't used to and interacting.
And the culture between men and women had changed because I'd changed.
Yeah.
Before, the culture that I was in, it was the girls would go out in their group, the guys would go out in their group, and then possibly you'd meet up at the end of the night. Mine was all very much bloke culture when I went away.
That's so acutely so. I mean,
but I'd changed as a person, and I didn't want to be that bloke. That sort of, I didn't want to be that person anymore. I wanted to be the more liberal, friendly. A friend is a friend, no matter whether it's male or female.
Yeah.
But I, as much as I wanted it, I'd never lived it. I'd never had it until I went to university. I mean, I had loads of female friends. Don't get me wrong.
I know what.
But it was a completely different culture to what it is.
Yeah, it's kind of hilarious, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's kind of, you couldn't get more.
Yeah, it was just it was an explosion of culture that I'd not really been a part of. But for my own ignorance.
Yeah, I mean, there is like a similarity between us, because I think in a way we've both been able to break for the border.
Yeah.
And we're not taking it for granted, the opportunity that we now have. We've got this inside us, this making arts in whatever is our shape or form, and it's not like I'm being able to take it for granted. And maybe it's taken me a while to realise this is who I am all along.
Yeah.
But I kind of think it was there always, but you can only ever be you, but then life happens to you, but then all these elements, they don't go away. I think they probably get in sometimes. You get enriched by being taken away. Maybe there's a reason for everything, and I don't think things are a waste necessarily, because.
Well, I definitely wouldn't have been an artist if I didn't go to prison, that's for sure.
That's so interesting. You definitely think you wouldn't have been an artist?
Oh, no. I'd never been into a gallery. I had no interest in art.
That's fascinating. So
I'd never looked at a painting. Dali and Picasso is the only names that I knew of.
Well, you were so busy doing all these other things.
Yeah, I know. So we've got a lot of artwork just in the room that we're sitting in at the moment. And one of my questions is, Tanya, if there was you and 5 other artists, past and present, what would your ideal group show be?
Right. I would say definitely that Merit Oppenheim. Delacroix. Maybe Anne Imhoff.
Okay, that's thrown me that one. I don't know that name. What do they make?
Well, German, and she makes these films that are all quite noisy. And I think she has a partner called Eliza Douglas.
Okay.
I quite like her paintings as well, that are very like a piece of silk, like a Disney Mickey Mouse or something, and it's just been like swirled around a bit.
Oh, I know those. Yeah. I know
I kind
her.
of like their kind of.
Well, they can come as one as their.
Yeah, they're almost a bit sort of like a style, fashiony thing, like Balenciaga. Maybe it's like a trend thing, but there is something about it that is quite. And probably my daughters, Evangeline and Bipasha.
Nice. And what are they creating at the moment?
Well, Evangeline she paints people and situations and like that have these huge like personalities and presence, and there's a kind of like something very gusto and like thunderbolt about them. They're kind of like a huge sense of they're like they're literally hilarious, but also a bit boundary crossing in nice. Like, oh no, kind of like, is
she looking to be an artist now?
Yes. So she's
sorry, is she an artist now?
Yes, she is, and she's also in a band called Audiobooks.
Okay.
And then Bip, she's known as Bip.
I know Bip, yeah.
She's just been like this huge like energy bubble of creativity like since she's been a teenager.
She's like a bouncing ball, isn't she?
Yeah,
she's
I mean,
just
she was the original blogger.
I was in the
that's
I was in the show with her at Fulham Town Hall.
That's right. Yeah. So
and she definitely made her mark there, didn't she? Brilliant.
Yeah. So.
And if you wasn't an artist, Tanya, what do you think you'd like to be?
Quite a few things that are really like maybe a doctor or a lawyer, or.
Is that what your parents would have wanted you to be?
Well, no, I think they.
I didn't mean to stereotype there, but
they probably.
I'm well aware that an Indian family would want that.
Or a diplomat or something. Yeah, something that isn't anything to do with art.
I suppose you've been a diplomat of sorts in your time anyway, haven't you?
Gosh, I mean, something to do that isn't. Yeah, I would have liked to have done something that's just not art at all.
Yeah.
Maybe like a macroeconomist.
No. Oh well.
Yeah, that's my father. He does that, and maybe working in a bank.
Brilliant.
Something that's just not anything to do with art. I've always been intrigued by I like sort of looking at people that don't look like they are really thinking much about their attire.
Yeah.
I find that very attractive. Or you see some people just like dressed like they're just having to dress because they're alive today.
Yeah.
I just think that would be quite something to be like that.
Brilliant. And is that because your life isn't like that?
Yeah, maybe because I've been immersed in with people and in work environment that is about that. Maybe and finding like a non-aesthetic really like quite stunning. Yeah.
And what have you got coming up? Have you got anything coming up at the moment?
Well, I've got two things on at the moment. I've got my show finishing in Los Angeles at the end of this month. I've in a show at the moment in Paris, and then next year this time I've got a show in New York.
Oh, nice.
In two of Harper's spaces. His really big space, and then his like smaller gallery space.
Super. And just to finish on, you've got a book.
Oh yes, so that's coming out. It literally should be out now. I wanted to show you, but it's literally going to be delivered to us by the end of the week.
Nice. And that is called what? And what is it about?
Yeah, it's just. I think it's called. My mind's gone blank. Henri Ling, Tanya Ling, and it's not chronological. It's a whole like melange of the last 20 something years, if not more so. William's completely edited it and art directed it. I think things that really he feels are very valid and that he's mixed together in such a way. So it'd be from sculptures to line paintings to the fashion work to installations.
Brilliant.
So it's the whole mixture.
And your work, I know that this should have been mentioned earlier, but Tanya Ling is very much the pair of you, isn't it?
Yes, I mean
it's beautiful, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah,
that.
it is.
Both of you are carving your way through this. You're out front, and he's sort of.
I'm so glad that you've because that is it. It's me doing. I mean, one could say we're like a Fellini film.
Yeah,
What's that one called? I can't remember, but yeah, we're a bit like that because I definitely do my thing. And I think William has to somehow make sense of it because he realises it is something, but then he has to make something out of it.
Yeah. Well, it's the hardest thing I find. The artist just wants to create. They don't want to be pushing their artwork in a direction, trying to do this, trying to do that. If everyone had a William behind them, doing that for them, how perfect would that be? So
it is a team.
To the pair of
it
you.
is. It's almost like he is the bridge. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you rent him out at all for other artists? I'll have him every other Tuesday if you don't mind. Yeah. Brilliant.
Well, I think he was really happy to be speaking to you. I'm sure he wants to speak to you more, but
I'd happily sit down for a couple of
hours. But I think you
and
basically summed it up.
Tell him some old stories. And absolutely finally, where can anyone find what you do, be it social media or website?
I do Instagram, but I'm not very reliable on it. But
And what's your Instagram?
Tanya _Ling, and I do have a website.
Which is?
Tanya at tanyaling.com. And then
no, that's your email address.
Actually, I was the last person to do emails.
It's
www. And then it's Harper Levine, Harper's Gallery but that's in America.
TanyaLing.com.
Yeah, TanyaLing.com.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time. I'm sorry to have taken up so much.
No, not at all. I'm.
Thank you very much. Well, hope you enjoyed that episode of the Ministry of Arts podcast. If you're unable to support us on Patreon, leaving a review on whichever platform you listen to this podcast really does help us get noticed and anyone else looking for an art podcast, or even giving us a positive shout out on your social media. Anything is appreciated, but either way, thanks for listening, and until next week, ta-da.